Parker, how do you make sure your podcast is an asset and that you're not actually sacrificing too much time by producing it?
Yeah. So if you really want to make sure you're optimizing the amount of time you're putting into your podcast, I usually recommend having a 4-hour podcast per month, even per week strategy. So the way you do that is making sure you have your content pre-planned and not just going off the cuff. Because what it does for that one is actually you spend more time thinking about your podcast and not recording it and not actually producing it, and it actually distracts from everything else. So eliminating that mental space is going to be a huge, huge thing. Another way of making sure you actually have that quality podcast that's not sucking away a lot of your time is outsourcing everything that is not directly increasing the amount of people you're able to impact. So that's making sure you have somebody doing your show notes, doing your audio editing and your transcriptions, making sure it all gets posted. If you got someone to schedule your social media assets as well, then that's fantastic. And as well, it then kind of goes into the whole thing of actually making sure your podcast is buying you back that time. And that's what basically turning every frequently asked question that comes your way, pain points, false beliefs, even core aspects of your offer ladder, and turning that into content and solid podcasts. I can even give you a simple framework to create those podcasts and making sure it's not anywhere more than 8 to 15 minutes for a solo episode, which is the optimal amount of time where actually someone's paying attention to you on a podcast. It's stats and studies that have been done. And with that is making sure, number one, you lay out a story. What is the number one thing that's going to allow somebody to internalize this lesson and apply it to their daily lives? Studies have shown from a psychological standpoint, people remember the beginning and ending of a recording, or beginning and ending of a story, beginning and ending of anything that comes across them. So if you have a story, it kind of goes on, it attaches emotional meaning beyond everything you're saying, and it allowed them to actually remember that and recall that when another thing kind of comes their way. After you have that story, you've targeted their emotions, they're excited, they're in it, they're focusing on what it is that you're saying, you're relating to them. You can then go into a tactic of how to apply that story into their daily lives. So for this right now, what I'm talking about is a 4-step framework. So that's the type of tactic I'm going to give to you guys. Strategy wise, you're going to help them implement that tactic, that here's my catchy title, here's how to do X in Y time without Z type thing. And then I'm going to help you implement that in different type of situations, as well as supplying examples, that 4th step, and actually making sure that you're able to take what it is I'm talking about and not only applying it to podcasts, but also making sure that your social media is just like that as well. Capitalize someone's attention with an emotional story. Make sure you give it the actual logic behind of how you're able to implement what it is you're talking about, and then making sure you actually have practical information and making sure that they can do it elsewhere. So that's how I guess I would recommend people make sure that their podcast is actually buying them back time and they're not wasting too much time as well on it.